Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. My name is Danielle, and I am a community events manager at the Highlands Ranch Community Association. Thanks for joining us for our kickoff to spring. The snow on the ground might not say so, but it is officially spring, and we are here for some amazing spring gin cocktails. We have Chad Kreutzer with us tonight, and he has 4 great gin drinks lined up for us. But before we get started with that, just a few things. If you do feel comfortable turning on your cameras, please do. It's easier to talk to faces than it is to the black screens. So if you do feel comfortable, we would appreciate that. And just to stop the background noise, I have everybody muted. And if you don't mind just staying muted throughout the event, you can ask all of your comments and questions and everything like that in the chat. Chad will be able to see the chat and be able to answer them from there. So without further ado, I will go ahead and send it right on over to him to get us started.
All right. There's me, all big. All right. Like I said, my name is Chad Kreutzer. I'm sure I've seen a lot of you over the this whole quarantine time from the beginning of these happy hours. I've taken part in almost all of them. And if you were here for Valentine's one, I took part in helping to present that. As I said then, I worked as a bartender many years ago. And since then, my friends and family, of course, have had me as their go-to to make drinks. And especially since I've had nothing else to do this past year plus, I've really been focusing a lot on my craft of mixing up drinks. So let's get started. So as Danielle said, all of our drinks today are going to be featuring gin. Specifically, I chose this Spring 44 gin. It's out of Loveland, Colorado, so it's local. I love supporting local distilleries when I can. And I chose it instead of something like a Tanqueray or a Bombay because it's a little softer on the juniper and it's kind of going to meld a bit better with the drinks here. You can get an Old Tom gin, which is a lot sweeter, or of course like a London Dry, which is a lot drier. But we're kind of going middle of the road here. So the first drink, I'm going to get these out of the way, that we'll be doing is the Gin Buck. Now the Gin Buck was derived from the Gin Ricky, which did not have the ginger beer, it just had soda water, and that was derived from the Joe Ricky, which was amazingly invented by a gentleman named Joe Ricky. And that used whiskey, not gin, but gradually people started to like his combination of things with gin better and better, so he finally just gave up. And in fact, in the summer of 1903, according to the Kansas City Star, the Gin Buck was the new hot drink of the summer. So we're drinking this in anticipation of some warmer weather. So this is built inside your Collins glass. Start out by filling it up with ice. That's enough. And you got a lime that you're going to cut in half. And then before you squeeze it, cut off a little wheel here that we're going to garnish with later. Set that aside. And now basically don't even measure it. Just squeeze right into the glass. The whole thing. This was an easy drink to make. Because, when you're just relaxing, you don't want to think too much. After that, add your gin. 2 ounces this time. You could eyeball, but I tend to prefer to measure my gin, years and years of habits. And then top that off with ginger beer. Like I said, we're starting easy. You can use whatever brand you like. I like Gosling's because it has some nice bite to it. There we go. Take your straw, or a spoon. Kind of give it a gentle stir. You want to mix things around, but you don't want to lose your fizz. And we're going to garnish with that lime wheel we pre-cut. And some mint. Now when you're garnishing with mint, you want to clap it first, like that. The reason you're doing that is you're kind of bruising the leaves to release some of the essential oils so it'll smell more. Also a little tip for when you're garnishing the drinks, especially drinks that you drink out of a straw, is you want to garnish it right around the straw, because garnish looks pretty, but it also adds a scent element to what you're drinking. So then when you drink it, it's pretty damn good. In addition to the gin, which should be relatively subtle with that amount of ginger beer, and the ginger and the lime inside, even though there's no mint in the drink, you'll get a little bit of it on your nose, and that'll kind of, since most of your taste is in what you smell, you'll get some sense of mint in it as well, even though there's no mint in the drink itself. All right. Can't drink too much of it. Usually when I'm just taking part, I'm drinking them all and I'm done by the end of this, but I kind of have to stay alert to keep on talking to you wonderful folks. So next we're going to be doing the bee's knees. Now this name should be obviously from our star ingredient, honey. Now it calls for honey syrup, not because it's anything special, but because honey is so thick and hard to pour, especially in cocktails. So when we're using honey in cocktails, we usually just thin it out with just a little bit of water. You can do a 50-50, but the recipe that I recommended was a 3-to-1, which the easiest way to do it is like fill up a pan with a certain amount of honey and then half that more of the water, or fill it into the not a pan but into the jar, and then just give it a shake. You don't even have to cook it or anything. And yeah, this will stay good for a long time because, well, honey. I just keep mine on the counter. I've never had it go bad. This is actually one of my favorite drinks. And it's, as also you can probably tell from the name, it's a Prohibition era cocktail. Because, you know, everything was the bee's knees back in the roaring 20s. Now, most drinks, you want to make sure to chill your glasses before you drink them, before you pour them in, because that helps them to stay cold longer. So I just put a little bit of ice and water in my coupe while I make up the drink. So we'll give it a start here. All right, there's no garnish to prepare beforehand. So I'm just going to cut the lemon and add that in. So I am going to measure this one. It's got 1 ounce of lemon juice. Ooh, wow. Almost got there with just half. And that's the rest of the way. There we go. 1 ounce of lemon juice. Then 3/4 ounce of the honey syrup. Okay. Reclose that. And then 2 ounces of our gin. Yeah, I drink these a lot. Kind of when you're drinking in the middle of winter, it reminds you of summer. And you're drinking it in spring and summer, it's just a nice cooling drink. Alrighty, and ice. Now in general, unless a drink recipe calls for it, you want to use as much ice as you can reasonably use, because it'll get it colder faster, and it will actually, contrary to what you might think, it won't dilute as much. Now we shake. All right, getting cold enough that I'm having trouble holding it. Pop off the top. Dump out my ice water. And I know I say double strain, but I actually kind of like to single strain this because you get little chips of ice in it, and it's just these, there's no real like layer of foam or anything that you want to worry about with a bee's knees, and the little chips of ice are little refreshing bursts of coldness, which are a lot of fun. All right. Get that collar out of the way. All right. And the bee's knees. You could garnish it if you wanted, but it doesn't call for one, and I don't think it needs one. I love like the kind of like the more soft sweet of the honey compared to the more sharp sweet of the sugar, and you get that kind of little bit of umami from it. And the lemon is really strong. It's really, really refreshing. Like I said, one of my favorites. And you can tell it's a Prohibition era drink because it has some really strong things kind of covering over the gin flavors. Because as you know, the term bathtub gin comes from a Prohibition for a reason, because people were making stuff in their basement and they had to find ways to make it palatable. Alrighty. Next up, we've got the White Lady. This one is also a Prohibition era cocktail, but this one's actually from near the end of Prohibition. It was invented by a guy named Harry McElhone in 1929. It was actually a twist on his original White Lady, which used creme de menthe instead of gin, which no, I haven't tried, and I don't know that I will, because it just does not sound appealing to me at all. This one here calls for an egg white. Now, if you're concerned about salmonella, you can get pasteurized eggs. But I've made many, many drinks through my years using egg whites, and I haven't gotten sick yet, but you never know. And of course, you may have some sort of a predisposition or some sort of illness that may cause you to have to be more concerned about that, and that I totally understand. Also, if you don't want to buy pasteurized eggs, or if you want a vegan option, you can use aquafaba, which is just the juice from garbanzo beans. It has a fancy name, probably because somebody somewhere didn't want to say just use garbanzo juice, because that would sound funny. And so you just open it up, pour off the juice into a little thing to keep in your fridge. It'll keep for about a week, maybe two. It starts to get kind of funky after that. You can also surprisingly use this aquafaba to make meringues and other things and substitute for egg whites in a lot of different recipes. And of course, just use the chickpeas and other things. I happen to be partial to Alton Brown's roasted chickpea snacks, but you do you. Alrighty, so getting started with the White Lady. We're going to put into our shaker. Well, first we've got the lemon. And we got a garnish here of a half moon. So we're going to cut the lemon, cut off a wheel, and then cut the wheel in half for a half moon. And now, I'm going to put in a ½ ounce of lemon juice. Oh, I almost forgot my own rule. This one, as you can see, is served in a cocktail glass. All right, so ½ ounce of lemon juice. Bam! And that I did only need half the lemon. These are pretty juicy lemons. I keep on wanting to look over there because you guys were there, but you're not there anymore. Now you're up there. So we got ½ ounce of lemon juice and then ½ ounce of Curacao. You can actually use any Curacao or triple sec. I experimented with a couple ones and I decided to go with Cointreau because it gave a more natural orangey flavor. One of them, Pierre Fernand, which you might try. It's a fancier one and it gives kind of, it's almost like a creamsicle sort of edge to it, which I personally didn't care for in this particular drink, but in something else like a orange whip, it might be good. So open that up. Put in a ½ ounce of your orange liqueur of choice. Alrighty, and then the egg white. Now, here's a trick for the egg white. As you might know from baking, don't break it into the thing you're going to be using it in, because you might make a mistake. So separate out the white. All right, see? First try. Didn't have to pad out time to go get myself another egg. I'm just tossing that, but if you want, you could save the yolk and make a prairie oyster. And we'll hit on that on a future happy hour. All righty, so dump everything into one. Okay, without any ice, as you see. Now what we're gonna do now is shake this up without any ice. Shake it long and hard because we wanna create an emulsion and kind of get some foam going. Now, something that you may know if you've made drinks before is that one of the things that holds these shakers together is the compression of the metal from being cold. That's not going to happen now. If you have a tin-on-tin shaker like this, it shouldn't be too big a deal if you get the seal right. You get a nice straight line here and get it pounded down. Now for a glass one, like this Boston here, the glass doesn't compress, so it doesn't make quite as good a seal. So you can hold it together as tight as you can, but what I will often do if I'm using one of these is I'll actually wrap it in a towel and shake it with a towel wrapped around it to help prevent things from escaping or from myself getting all sticky. So let's give this a shake. Alexa, set a timer for 40 seconds.
10 seconds.
That's helpful because my brain doesn't remember things like that very well. I'm sure this is really exciting seeing me just shake this. Here, go the other side. It's a good workout too. Anytime now, Alexa. There we go. All right. Alexa, stop. And thank you. All right, now we add some ice. Don't necessarily want a ton. And then we shake it again. Should get a good seal and more shaking. All right, that's good and cold. Open you up. Dump it out. And then strain in. Alrighty. There we go. You see we've got a nice little layer of foam on top. Slice that. And what I will usually do is like run this around the entire rim. Of course, gotta be careful not to mess with the foam. Just kind of get a little bit of scent of lemon on the whole rim of the glass. And then here we have the White Lady. Oh. So, can you spot the gaff? This is a very light alcohol drink right now. I was wondering why it's so low when I didn't quite go up as far as it should have gone. So when you make it, put the gin in. But it's actually not too bad for a orange, curacao, and a lemon and egg white drink. Very orangey. Yep. Alrighty. So our last one that we have today, let me rinse out my strainer here, is a fancy bubbly drink called the French 75. French 75 is actually named for a gun, which I got a picture of here. It's from World War I, a 75 millimeter French artillery cannon, field cannon. And it does, between the gin and the, which I will put in this time, and the champagne, it does pack somewhat of a punch. So today we're going to be using the Zonin Prosecco, which is the one that you had a coupon for from Davidson's, which, by the way, thank you very much, Davidson's, for being a sponsor. We couldn't do this without you. And thank you, Highlands Ranch, for putting this on. I've had a lot of fun this whole year of being locked down, and I've learned a lot, and it's given me something to look forward to every other week. I think it started out as every week, didn't it? Yeah, it did. So, but anyhow, it really doesn't matter what kind of bubbly you use. Just don't use the good stuff, all right? I mean, I suppose you can if you're trying to impress your boss or something like that, but you aren't going to really be able to taste the nuances, so just use something cheap. And even though I'm showing off the 750, we're going to use a small one, because that way we don't have to drink the rest of the bubbly before it goes flat. All right, so as per usual, get the glass chilling. Here's my glass getting cold. Alrighty, and now for this one, we're going to do a strip from the lemon. So before we cut it, we clean up some of the mess that we've made. So before we cut it, we take a peeler. I like to use these because they're a bit better to control with, but you can use like a old school one, like I don't have in my drawer, or there are little tools that you can actually get that actually take actual like strips of the peel off, which if you look at the picture of the one that Danielle so kindly shared with us, whoever made that particular one used. But I just use one of these, and I get one as long as I can, kind of starting up at one corner, kind of one end, kind of going diagonally down to try to get a nice long strip. Go come to the end there, bam, there we go. Nice long strip. Doesn't necessarily have to be straight. Obviously this one isn't, because we're going to make it all curly Q anyhow. Now, depending on the drink, you can leave it rough like this, or what you can do is just kind of take your knife and go along and cut off the rough edges. Which is what I'm doing here, because a French 75 is a fancy drink. It's not a rustic drink. But like for an old-fashioned, I will usually just cut the strip and just leave it all rough. I'll use a much shorter one too, and then just toss it in as is so I can feel all manly and rustic. So getting this one. There we go. And then I like putting a little angle on the tops and the bottom. There we are. So it's all, it doesn't matter that it's like this because what we're going to be doing with this, I'll take my strainer here, just kind of twirl it around. Just kind of leave it like that to help it to stay that way, and then carry on with the drink. So now for this one, I'm going to need ½ ounce of lemon juice. There we go. And a ½ ounce of simple syrup. Simple syrup you can buy. You absolutely can buy it. Torino makes a brand. There's pretty much, you know, those syrup flavors that you see when you go to brands that you see when you go to a coffee shop like Z's or Starbucks. Most of those make these, so you can buy simple syrup, but there's no reason to. It's super, super easy to make. I included a recipe for it, and I'm sure you've probably seen other presenters as you attended more of these have recipes as well. It's just 1 part by weight of sugar to water. Bring it just to a boil, stirring constantly, let it cool, pour into a bottle, bam, Bob's your uncle. Officially, it'll only keep a couple of weeks, but honestly, I've never had it go bad on me in the fridge. So, I mean, your mileage may vary. I'm not a lawyer. So a ½ ounce of simple syrup. I like the tin on tin because it's a little easier to get off, and also because of the sealing for the egg whites. But the fun thing about using this sort of shaker, the Boston style, is that you can see what you're pouring. So that's kind of nice. So you can get an idea of what's going on in there. Alrighty then. So, and then we need 1 ounce of gin. Told you I wouldn't forget it this time. All right, so I know the recipe I say 1 cube of ice, but you might use a couple. You just don't want a lot because you don't really want to dilute this much, and you just want to just get a little chill. So I'm just going to do 3 cubes. Why not? All righty. So seal it up, give it a shake. Taking a little longer because there isn't as much ice in there. But there we go. That's good. Just kind of go by your hands and how it feels. All right. So now this, we're doing kind of a slightly different thing here because we're going to strain this into the small half. And then we're going to add our bubbles. Now what we're doing here is we're just kind of going to gently mix the bubbles with the stuff. Because if you just poured this in, then you'd have to kind of try to stir it, and you don't want to lose your bubbles because they aren't quite as intense as the bubbles as like from a ginger beer, which can stand up to a bit more. So if you do it this way, you can kind of like, you pour it in, then basically pour it into this, then pour it into this. You're able to get it mixed without losing quite as much of your effervescence. Now, how much bubble you use depends on the size of your glass. My glass up to the tippy top is 8 ounces. And I've got 3 ounces in here already. There's gonna be a little bit of addition from the dilution from the ice. And I don't want to not be able to hold it. So I'm gonna put like 3½ ounces in, but you just let your glass be your guide. And over time, you might decide that you like more or less. Of course, be careful with the bubbles bubbling up. That's 2. That's 3.5. Now you might be wondering what sort of mad, crazy math is he doing? This is what's called a Japanese style shaker, which I highly recommend. I've got like these traditional ones that you're used to seeing. But a Japanese style shaker, it's tall and narrow, and it has inside of it, if you don't know if you can, you can kind of sort of see, it has lines for the different measurements. So that's how I've been using this other side for all those different measurements, and this side for that one particularly. So it has, this one has 2 ounces to the top and 1.5 ounces to the line. Now, pour in. Let's see how I did my math. Beauty of having extra. There you go, that's a bit better. So yeah, I could have probably done another 1.5 ounces more. And then we take our swirly lemon peel and drop it in. And there we have a French 75. Nice, refreshing, bubbly, kind of fancy, and good for a nice warm spring day. So that's my last drink that I have to make for you guys. Before I look at the chat and answer any questions, just like to toast you all. Thank you, Danielle, for making this possible. And thank you all for being here and putting up with my rambling. And I'll say to Colorado Spring, may it ever keep us on our toes. Cheers. All right. Let's see if we've got anything interesting here. All right, so I've heard of that happening on TV and in comics and stuff, but I never had it happen to me before. I apologize to all your ALAXAs. All righty, there's the scroll bar. Come on, scroll bar, there we are. All righty. Let's see. It depends on the drink, really, Gene. Like, I mean, I have heard of people using like a lemon flavored gin in like in a bee's knees, but to me, it kind of tends to start to overpower, and it also can sometimes taste artificial. You might, I don't know, it might. French 75 might actually do nicely with a flavored gin, depending on what flavor you're going with, of course. Like, I don't know that I want to do a raspberry gin, although raspberry lemonade is a thing. Huh, might try that. You never know. So yeah, let's see. That was only a little over a half hour. You have any other questions or anything? On the first shaker I used, is what's known as a cobbler shaker. This is the one that you'll usually see in like gift sets. It has like the strainer right here. I don't generally like these, but I didn't want to have to constantly be rinsing out shakers in between drinks. Thank you, Jenny. I didn't want to be rinsing out shakers between drinks, so I decided to use all of my shakers that I have. But the reason I don't like these is because that oftentimes these can get to be almost impossible to separate, and also they tend to leak a little bit more than these other two, and you don't have as much control with the little holes here as you do using a Hawthorne strainer. Of course, the benefit of this is if you don't want to invest in all the equipment, bam, one-stop shop. My top 3 favorite gins and why. Oh my gosh, you're asking me an essay question. All righty, let's see. So my top 3 favorite gins would be in order, I would say Leopold Brothers Summer Gin. Because it's another really soft one that goes well in these sorts of drinks. And it has a nice taste of summer. And again, I like supporting local distilleries. 2 would be Hendrick's. That's not local at all. In fact, I believe it's Scottish. Again, another slightly less traditional gin, but I love using Hendrick's in a martini. 2 parts Hendrick's, 1 part dry vermouth, and I do just a little bar spoon of olive brine. I call it an untidy martini instead of a dirty martini because I don't use that much olive brine in it, but it's delicious, delicious, delicious. So yeah, that'd be number 2. And number 3, I would actually go with the big name brand Tanqueray, and that's just because, in my opinion, Tanqueray makes the best Negronis. And there you go, my 3 favorite gins and why. See, as you can see, I was drinking on this, but I just always go back to the bee's knees because I find it to be the bee's knees. Kind of like where the chat thing is positioned. I can't see my face.
Awesome. Well, if we don't have any more questions for Chad or comments, I will go ahead and close us out for the night. I just want to give a huge thank you and round of applause to Chad. We really appreciate you doing this and teaching some great drinks and kicking off spring. Can't believe it's already spring, but it's here. So thank you so much for doing that. Thank you to Davidson's. Without Davidson's, these events would not happen. So we really appreciate them. And thank you to all of you for supporting these events and these virtual events. Once again, we keep putting these on because people keep coming back. So as long as you guys keep coming back, they'll be there for you. So thank you guys so much. And we appreciate your time tonight and hope you guys enjoy some great drinks and have a great weekend. Thanks again, Chad.
You're welcome. Just 1 second, I'm responding to somebody. Actually, I'll just respond to her vocally. Sarah, it's just the juice from garbanzo beans. That's all. Nothing. No, you don't have to do anything to it. You just open the can, you strain off the juice, and keep it. Like this just happens to be Kerner's brand, but it doesn't matter. Get whatever store brand you have. Oh, actually, I would say though, yes, no salt added. Don't get the lower salt stuff because that salt can mess with the flavor balance. So yeah, that's all it is. And yeah, you can actually find vegan recipes for things like vegan, forgot what they're called, little fluffy white things, vegan meringues, and all sorts of fun stuff you can do with aquafaba as a replacement for egg whites. All right, there we go. Now we're good.
Thanks. Have a great night.
Thank you. See y'all later.